Andre, we've heard Lando talk a lot about how he's finding this a tricky car to drive. Just from the outside, what is it as a team that you can do to try and help him with that? Because I imagine it's not just a case of flicking a switch, it's a bit more fundamental than that.
The MCL 39, the 2025 car, is a fast car, faster than last year's car. And this competitiveness came by changing many things. Okay, I think we have realized that there's a couple of things that, especially in relation to Lando's driving style, may be occasionally an advantage, but sometimes may create a bit of a disconnect between what Lando expects from the car and what the car is actually doing. We have approached that with actually what I could see was quite high-level engineering. And even here at this event, we have applied a few modifications, and we are very interested in seeing how they work. And yeah, I think it's an interesting weekend, not only from an overall competitiveness point of view, but also in terms of fine-tuning this aspect of the car so that Lando can drive in the most natural way.
I know it's early days because we've only seen FP1 and he was obviously top in that session, but unrepresentative. What are your expectations for your car around here, taking into account what you said about how it's
well, the first session I think is not very representative. Also, there were many of the top drivers replaced, so we will see in FP2. I think at this track what I expect is that the car may exploit a bit more compared to Suzuka, for instance. The fact that there should be some tire degradation. The car seemed to be good when there is high tire degradation, but at the same time, I think from a qualifying point of view, this may be the most difficult circuit in the first in this first 1/3 of the season. So I think there's definitely a requirement to do a good job in qualifying, get the most of the car in qualifying. For the race, I'm a little bit more optimistic.
Yeah, and just one last thing for me on the subject of qualifying. I know that Bahrain you can overtake in a way you can't so much in Japan, but is that an area that maybe going forward you might want to favour a little bit more over the race, just to try and make sure you've got that better track position?
Well, to be honest, if I knew how, perhaps I would do it. But it's not like there's an easy win in terms of, oh, this will make the car faster and better in qualifying, even at the cost of some race pace. It's actually not obvious what you should work on the car to redistribute if you want this competitiveness. So I think we just have to make a good work of exploiting the full potential of the car, which will be a benefit in both conditions, and obviously in background we are working to further improve the car.
James, great to see you, and what a start to the season the team have had, particularly on one side of the garage. How pleased are you with just the way the team has responded over the winter to really step it on so far this year?
Yeah, really pleased, because it's this is a really competitive grid now. Gone are the days where there's large gaps. We're down into milliseconds, and what I'm really pleased about is that our focus has been on 2026. I've been very clear on that, but we've still been able to produce a car that's moved us up to really the top end of the midfield and in contention for fighting for points every weekend, which is what our target was going into it. There's some elements, though. We have work to do to help Carlos get comfortable in the car, because I think then, once you have both of them there, will be a force to be reckoned with, really, against the midfield fight. But otherwise, I'm happy that we've got most of what we could get out at the beginning of the season. I think there's little bits of points here and there that still couldn't be picked up.
With Carlos, it's always been the case that it probably takes a bit of time, like any driver, to settle in. Do you feel like you've kind of got what you were paid for, essentially, in the drive that you've had from the experience you've had of the first 3 races?
I think we're getting more than I paid for. And I think the reason why I say that is because there's 2 different ways to assess performance. Number one is obviously what you see in the car driving around. And in that regard, he's making steps forward. I'm very comfortable that he will be on the pace shortly. But it takes time to acclimatise. We are quite a different car to the Ferrari. But the second element is where I've been very impressed. What he's doing with working with our aerodynamics team, with our race engineering team, with pretty much everyone throughout our organisation on finding those last milliseconds. That's the reason why I wanted him as part of this team, and he's delivering absolutely above my expectations.
You obviously know a lot about the guy on the other side of the garage, having worked with him for a while. It feels like he's really levelled up. Have you seen a different Alex this year?
Yeah, 100%. when I first joined, within that first year, he stepped up significantly, and I've seen the same step this year. He knew he had Carlos, who's a benchmark in the sport, coming in. And what we're seeing from Alex now is he still has his funny side, but it's a lot more focused and dedicated. And I'd say in a weekend, he's delivering. There's no foot he's putting wrong. And that's really quite impressive for the races we had so far, and I'm sure the races going forward.
Just one final question. I know he says that his team radio is always like that, but what have you made of his team radio?
The bit for me is this. I think we could have done a better job of letting him know. If we said to him, bear man 4 seconds behind on exit, you relax right down. All he really knew is cars are stopping around me and I'm in traffic with leaders. And you got to remember, all a driver can see is probably half a kilometre in front of them and about 200 metres behind them, maybe in mirrors. What I like about him is you can't take one without the other. So his come on when he comes on the radio, you can feel it's electric. That's the emotion he shows. And the converse to that is, when he's frustrated, he'll show that emotion as well at the same time. You can't taper one down without the other one being tapered down, and I'd much rather he shows this emotion.
I think great to see finally in black and green. It must be the longest gardening period waited to get started. How has it been, though, since you've joined the team?
It's been fantastic, to be honest. You know, not just changed teams, I've moved countries. We now live in Switzerland, which is spectacular in itself, you know. And certainly the welcome I've had in the team from the very first day and the first time that I managed to speak to everyone on stage there has been absolutely fantastic. I find myself completely reinvigorated.
What have you found there? I know it's early days, but what have you found there? Because obviously you've got immense experience of what Red Bull can do, but you've now had a look in the inner workings of what Sauber have got.
Well, I arrived a little late into Japan, and what I've decided is that really this triple header, I'm going to use my eyes, ears and mouth in proportion, making notes, and I'm just trying to work out where I can add value and where I can support the team. And I think we'll have a little bit of a breathing space after Jeddah where I can crystallise those ideas and form a plan.
In terms of the performance of the team, you would have seen from the outside it's been a bit of a tricky couple of years for them. Can you see already, even in the couple of weekends you've been, kind of areas that are ripe for improvement?
Well, I think, you know, even in a very, very top team that's winning championships, you can see areas where you can improve on every single level. You know, our job is to build momentum. You know, it's a short period of time before we launch as Audi in 2026, and we've got to keep building on momentum throughout that period. And I don't think I've homed in on any specific areas, but some generalities where I think we can add a bit of structure, where things will be